In this video we're going to try a really cool weld, and we're going to start by heating up this piece of mild steel axe. We're going to take it out and we're going to place a high carbon steel bit on top, and then we're going to place another piece of mild steel on top of that. And it makes it look almost like a hamburger. Back into the fire and try to tack them together without them slipping around. Can it be done? I have no idea. Let's try. Alright, so I've been trying to work here a little bit on the ends because I did have a small delamination there. So what I did was that I cleaned it up, put on some flux, and then hit back in the fire, and then heated it up and tried to work on it. And I did so with a pretty aggressive peen here on the small hammer, and I think I got it. So I'm now considering the forge welding session to be done, and I'm going to start focusing on drawing the blade out. Now some of you might be asking, hey, wouldn't it have been easier just to tack weld the pieces together before forge welding? Yes, probably 1,000 times easier, and I would recommend you do that. But I wanted to try it, and also, who remembers a cow, right? So I'm just checking the final straightness here before we let it cool off. And it's a very good idea to have a drift with the handle on, because then you can hold it and see that the edge is aligned. You can also check it like this. It seems to be good. The angle grinder is the first tool I invested in when I started forging. It really helps speed up the grinding process, and I'm going to use it now to work on the profile and establish the edge. You can do all the rough grinding with the angle grinder, but I like to go back to the file and do all the finish work with the file, because I find that the file finish is very beautiful, especially if you heat up the piece later and brush it. It leaves a really nice, beautiful texture, in my opinion. So I actually have two heat treating ovens that I don't use. And the reason for that is a meeting that I had a long time ago with a master blacksmith who really inspired me. And we talked a lot about grinding axes and stuff like that, and he was against it. And he didn't see anything wrong with grinding per se. His view of blacksmithing was that it's blacksmithing that I love. I love to forge, not to grind. Now, he could invest in super cool heat treating ovens and automate the process and everything like that, but he chose not to because he loves the craft, and that's the reason why he's doing what he's doing, not because he wants to make as much money as possible or anything like that. It's the craft alone that drives him. And when I had that meeting, it really inspired me. and I bought one of the heat treating ovens before I met him. And I chose not to use it afterwards, because when I saw him heat treating his axes, it was like magic. He held it up like this, a little too hot, and he let it sink, and he told me exactly what temperature it was all of the time. And I trusted him. He could have just fooled me there, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. And it was really interesting. And when I saw him do that, it was masterful, and it just inspired me to train like that. And that's what drives me. That's what I find funny about this. With that said, it's important to understand, there's been some discussion lately and many fair points. I've been talking about colors here in my earlier videos. And when I say colors, it's what I see here, what my eye has been trained to in this room, right? So if I were to take this outside, it would look different. And it's important to understand that. You need to train your eyes to your room. And if you need help to establish the temperatures, you can buy an infrared thermometer, or you can do the magnet test and do tests like that, or just by trial and error. That's basically the reason why I do it by color and by eye. Not because it's better, but it inspires me. Oh, hey! Alright, so the axe is tempered and it's now time to sharpen it. I would advise you not to use the angle grinder here, because the angle grinder gets really hot and there's a big chance of ruining the temper. So I am instead going to use files. Now, I've been getting some questions in my earlier videos about filing a hardened edge. How is that even possible? Shouldn't the file just skate? Well, it depends on how hard the file is and how hard the edge is. For many axe applications, you want toughness rather than extreme hardness. So imagine you're out in the field, you happen to hit a knot. Now, you don't want your axe to break and chip off, right? That would be very hard to fix, especially if you're out in the field or working. Many would rather the edge roll a little bit, and you can fix that with a file and a sharpening stone. So it all depends on what steel you're using, how you heat treat it, and what you're aiming for. And in this case, I'm sacrificing some of the hardness to gain toughness instead. It all depends on what it's meant for, but I can show you here. This file, for example, a high quality Swedish file, does not bite the edge. It just skates. But this file, also a high quality Swedish file, slightly bites. Now, obviously, I can feel a really big difference from filing before the heat treatment and now. It doesn't bite much, but it bites a little bit. And that's enough for me to do this, because there's so little I need to sharpen here. So let's get sharpening. So to polish the edge of the axe, I'm actually going to use a polishing disc for the angle grinder. And to be honest, that's how I do most of my axes that I sell. I polish with this flap disc. You simply add some polishing compound and then you're ready to go. The smell of pine tar in the morning, nothing beats that. So the Hamburger axe is completed and I'm also giving it away. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave a comment and I will pick one out at random that will receive this axe. But please turn on your notifications. You have no idea how many people I've written to that have won axes in the past and they don't reply because they don't have their notifications on. So please turn on your notifications. So the Hamburger weld is obviously not the correct name for it. I don't really know what the correct name for it is, But I thought it was fitting since we already have the taco method, now we have the hamburger method, and in a future video I'm also going to show you the sandwich method. So we have 3 food-related weld methods. This is actually a pretty useful technique to know, and it's especially useful for repairing broken axes. So for example, I saw a colleague of mine who repaired a very old fine axe that had a huge chip in it. So he used this method to repair the axe and restore it to its former glory. Now obviously the most practical way of doing this would be to tack weld the pieces before you heat them up and forge weld them. Primarily for 2 reasons. The first one is that you reduce the risk of the pieces slipping when taking it out, and that could potentially be devastating. Imagine you try to pull them out and you hit it and it slips and the pieces get stuck in the wrong direction or anything like that. That would be devastating. And the other reason is that it's always good when you're doing forge welds to have the pieces as tight together as possible before you heat them up, to reduce the risk of oxidation and stuff getting in. So if you paid close attention, you saw that I started forge welding here on the edge, which meant that there was a big gap back here where potential scale and the slag and stuff could get in. But I tried to prevent that by using a lot of flux, and I also tried working methodically when I got back here. So I started from the middle, working my way down and up. And you can see in the video that there's a lot of slag shooting out when I'm hitting the piece, which is a good sign. So I can't see any imperfections in the weld. It seems to have held up very nicely, which in my book is a success. So I am very happy. It was very educational for me, and I hope it was for you. I would also like to take a moment to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon and YouTube membership. Their contributions help me create these videos for everyone to see. So if you would like to help out, there are links in the description to Patreon and YouTube membership, and you can join for as little as $2 a month. Thank you so much for considering, and thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.